The Bermuda Triangle, often called the Devil's Triangle, is a stretch of the western North Atlantic between the points of Miami, Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. For decades, it has captured the world's imagination as an allegedly cursed region where ships and airplanes vanish without a trace. Stories of unexplained disappearances and mysterious phenomena in this area have spawned countless legends, books, documentaries, and wild theories. Some have even claimed that over 50 ships and 20 aircraft, totaling thousands of lives, have been lost in the triangle since the 1800s. Despite its infamous reputation, the U.S. government does not recognize the Bermuda Triangle as an official region, and experts largely agree there is no abnormal mystery to solve. Yet the legend persists. The notion of eerie happenings in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle can be traced back to the age of exploration. In 1492, during his first voyage to the New World, Christopher Columbus sailed through part of what is now considered the Triangle and noted bizarre occurrences. Columbus reported in his log that a bursting flame of fire, likely a meteor, crashed into the sea one night, and a few weeks later a strange light appeared on the horizon that seemed to move up and down. He also wrote of erratic compass readings and unusual patches of shallow, calm water teeming with floating seaweed, the Sargasso Sea, which alarmed his crew. These accounts are often cited as the first hints of something uncanny in this part of the Atlantic. Sailors in the centuries that followed added their own lore. The Sargasso Sea, overlapping with part of the Triangle, gained a spooky reputation in tall tales of the 1700s and 1800s. Stories abounded of sailing ships becoming becalmed in thick mats of seaweed, their crews allegedly starving while ghost ships drifted crewless, or of sudden storms and whirlpools catching explorers unawares. Such legends of unpredictable weather and unexplained happenings in the region were early precursors to the Bermuda Triangle's mystique. Even literature may have drawn inspiration from Bermuda's mysterious environs. Some scholars believe William Shakespeare's play The Tempest, circa 1611, which features a magical shipwreck on a distant island, was inspired by real accounts of a shipwreck in Bermuda in 1609. This indicates that long before the Triangle had a name, the idea of strange forces at work near Bermuda was seeping into popular imagination. By the 19th century, the Bermuda Triangle area was a busy corridor for ships, and a number of odd maritime incidents helped shape its legend. One frequently told story is that of the Ellen Austin in 1881. The Ellen Austin, a sailing ship traveling from Liverpool to New York, supposedly encountered an abandoned ghost ship adrift in the Triangle. The derelict vessel was found in good condition, fully stocked with supplies, but no crew on board. The captain of the Ellen Austin put some of his men on the mystery ship to sail it to port. According to lore, a sudden squall separated the two ships. When the Ellen Austin caught up, the ghost ship's new prize crew had vanished without a trace. Determined, the captain tried again. He placed another crew on the derelict and continued. This time a thick fog rolled in, and once more the ship disappeared, never to be seen again. While details vary, and some question the truth of this tale, the Ellen Austin story is a classic Bermuda Triangle legend of the era, hinting at a malevolent force plucking people off ships. Another oft-cited disappearance is that of Joshua Slocum in 1895. Slocum was a famed mariner, the first person to sail solo around the world. In November 1909, years after his historic voyage, Slocum departed Martha's Vineyard on a solo trip to South America and was never seen again. Given his skill, many found his loss baffling. Although no evidence tied his disappearance to any specific location, some later writers retroactively linked Slocum to the Bermuda Triangle mystery, suggesting that even an expert sailor could fall victim to the Triangle's supposed curse. Moving into the early 20th century, mysterious tragedies continued. One of the earliest major incidents squarely within what we now call the Bermuda Triangle was the loss of the HMS Atalanta in 1880. The Atalanta was a British naval training ship that sailed from Bermuda with over 290 cadets and crew, and simply vanished after a storm, never reaching its destination. Although most historians suspect a hurricane sank the Atalanta, the failure to find wreckage kept it in the annals of maritime mystery. It was incidents like this, ships here and there disappearing without explanation, that laid the groundwork for later speculation that something about this region was uniquely deadly. USS Cyclops, 1918. A Navy collier vanishes. The incident that truly brought the legend of the Bermuda Triangle into focus was the 1918 disappearance of the USS Cyclops, a massive U.S. Navy cargo ship. The Cyclops was a 542-foot-long collier, coal transport ship with over 300 sailors and passengers on board. In March 1918, amid World War I, the Cyclops departed Brazil bound for Baltimore loaded with 10,000 tons of manganese ore. After a stop in Barbados, the ship's captain reported by radio that they were proceeding north and all was well, with fair weather. Then the Cyclops sailed into history. It never arrived in port, and no trace of the ship or its crew was ever found. USS Cyclops in 1911, seen in New York Harbor. In 1918, the 542-foot naval collier vanished without a trace en route through the Triangle, becoming the single largest non-combat loss in U.S. Navy history. What makes the Cyclops case especially perplexing is that no distress signal was ever received. The ship seemed to vanish suddenly, despite being in range of radio and equipped with lifeboats. The U.S. Navy launched an exhaustive search, but not a scrap of wreckage was located. In the Navy's own words at the time, the Cyclops' disappearance was one of its most baffling mysteries and remains the single largest loss of life on a non-combat ship in U.S. naval history. Understandably, in wartime, some suspected a German submarine or raider might have sunk the ship, yet no enemy ever claimed credit, and post-war German records showed no engagement. The Cyclops appears to have just vanished without a trace, fueling theories from mutiny to storms to more fanciful ideas. In 1919, the U.S. Navy Secretary Franklin D. Roosevelt, later U.S. President, wrote, "There has been no more baffling mystery in the annals of the Navy regarding the Cyclops." Intriguingly, the Cyclops had two sister ships, the USS Proteus and USS Nereus, that followed similar fates. In late 1941, both the Proteus and Nereus, by then converted to ore carriers, were lost on separate voyages in the western North Atlantic, along nearly the same route as the Cyclops, and likewise vanished without distress calls. These coincidental losses, also possibly due to storms or structural issues, later became part of Triangle lore. 3 large ships, same class, all disappearing in these waters, suggesting to some a common but mysterious cause. Flight 19, 1945, the Lost Squadron. If the Cyclops established the Triangle's notoriety at sea, it was Flight 19 that did so in the air. Flight 19 is perhaps the most famous of all Bermuda Triangle mysteries and a key part of its chronology. On December 5, 1945, just a few months after World War II, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers took off from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a routine training mission over the Atlantic. The flight of 5 TBM Avengers, crewed by 14 experienced airmen, was scheduled to practice bombing runs at a site in the Bahamas and then return to base, a straightforward 3-hour exercise. The patrol, led by Instructor Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, initially proceeded normally, but about an hour into the mission, Lieutenant Taylor radioed that his compass was malfunctioning and that both of his plane's compasses were gone crazy. The flight had become disoriented. Believing he might be off course, Taylor made a fateful decision. He assumed they had somehow flown over the Florida Keys into the Gulf of Mexico and ordered the squadron to turn northeast. In reality, this maneuver took Flight 19 further out to sea, deep into the Atlantic. As minutes ticked by, confusion grew. The base in Fort Lauderdale received fragmented radio transmissions from the patrol. "Cannot see land. We seem to be off course. We cannot be sure of any direction. Everything is wrong, strange. The ocean doesn't look as it should." The pilots sounded unnerved, as if the very sea and sky had become unfamiliar. Back at the control tower, operators were helplessly listening as the men of Flight 19 tried to navigate. Weather conditions were rapidly deteriorating. One of the last radio messages caught one pilot reporting, "Everything looks strange, even the ocean." Another said, "It looks like we are entering white water. We're completely lost." Interference then covered the voices, and the 5 planes were never heard from again. As night fell, the Navy scrambled a search and rescue. A Mariner flying boat with 13 crew was launched to hunt for Flight 19, but 20 minutes after takeoff, that rescue plane itself disappeared from radar and never returned. It's believed the Mariner exploded in mid-air, as a ship later reported seeing a fireball. These seaplanes had a history of fuel vapor ignitions, but this added yet another layer to the unfolding mystery. What followed was one of the largest air-sea search operations to date. Over the next 5 days, the Navy and Coast Guard combed 380,000 square miles of ocean with hundreds of aircraft and ships. Not a single piece of wreckage from Flight 19 or the Mariner was found. The Navy's final report on the disaster was forced to admit it was as if they had flown to Mars, because no explanation for the loss could be determined. The disappearance of Flight 19, happening in peacetime skies on a routine mission, captured public attention and truly ignited the idea that the Bermuda Triangle held unsolved mysteries. Flight 19's story soon entered pop culture and persists to this day. The image of 5 military planes vanishing together in fair weather is haunting. Years later, Steven Spielberg even opened his sci-fi film Close Encounters of the Third Kind with a scene of Flight 19's planes reappearing in the desert, a nod to the UFO theories around their fate. In reality, most researchers suspect Flight 19 ultimately ran out of fuel and ditched in rough seas, sinking before help arrived. But the lack of debris and the eerie radio messages have ensured Flight 19's place as the quintessential Bermuda Triangle mystery. In the years surrounding Flight 19, several other high-profile disappearances in the Triangle furthered the legend. In late 1948, a Douglas DC-3 airliner carrying 29 passengers and 2 crew vanished while flying from Puerto Rico to Miami. The veteran pilot, Captain Robert Lindquist, was only 50 miles from Miami and had just radioed for landing instructions. Sometime after that transmission, the DC-3 simply went silent and never arrived. No wreckage was ever found. The disappearance of this commercial flight spooked the public and made headlines, especially since it occurred in clear weather and within reach of the coastline. Around the same period, 2 British airliners met similar fates. In January 1948, a British South American Airways Avro Tudor, 4 named Star Tiger, disappeared en route to Bermuda with 25 passengers. The following year, in January 1949, another Tudor I-4 called Star Ariel vanished on a flight from Bermuda to Jamaica. Both planes were large, multi-engine airliners, and both disappeared without distress calls. Despite extensive searches, no trace of either was ever found. The official investigation into the Star Tiger concluded, "What happened in this case will never be known. The fate of Star Tiger must remain an unsolved mystery." Such official bafflement only reinforced the idea that something in this region defied conventional explanation. The 1950s and 60s saw their share of incidents as well. In 1963, the marine sulfur freighter SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a 425-foot tanker carrying molten sulfur and 39 crew, departed Beaumont, Texas for Norfolk, Virginia. It was last heard from near the southern coast of Florida, in the Triangle's fringes. After weeks of searching, only a few pieces of debris and life preservers were recovered. The ship's entire structure and crew had vanished. While it was later speculated that a catastrophic explosion, sulfur is volatile, or structural failure may have sunk the ship, the lack of a definitive cause put the Marine Sulphur Queen in Triangle lore. Small private vessels and planes have also gone missing. One oft-retold case is that of a cabin cruiser called the Witchcraft in December 1967. The 23-foot luxury yacht, with 2 men aboard, set out from Miami for a short pleasure cruise to view Christmas lights along the shore. About a mile offshore, within sight of Miami, the Coast Guard received a call from the Witchcraft's captain reporting they had hit something, perhaps a submerged object. But there was no emergency. He indicated they would flare their location. The Coast Guard rushed out within 19 minutes to the coordinates, but found nothing at all. The boat had vanished in the brief interim, leaving the Coast Guard baffled given the proximity to land and the calm conditions. No wreck or bodies were ever found. The Witchcraft case, though rarely highlighted in official lists, is frequently cited in popular accounts as a Triangle mystery emblematic of a vessel that should not have disappeared but did. Even into the 1970s and 1980s, incidents continued to feed the mystery. In 1976, a 590-foot cargo ship, The SS Sylvia L. Assa was en route from Panama to Philadelphia when it vanished in a gale with 37 crew aboard. Only an empty lifeboat and a few life vests were later found. In November 1978, an experienced pilot named Irving Rivers took off in a small plane from the U.S. Virgin Islands toward St. Thomas on a clear night. He was just 1 mile from landing, approach lights visible to the tower, when his plane suddenly disappeared from radar and never arrived. In 1984, a Cessna with a skilled pilot departing Fort Lauderdale for Bimini vanished from radar 30 minutes after takeoff. A witness on a nearby boat claimed to see a plane plunge into the ocean, but no wreckage was recovered. These cases showed that even in the modern era, every so often a boat or aircraft could still meet an untimely end in the triangle, helping to keep the mystery alive. By the end of the 1960s, the stage was set. The Bermuda Triangle had a long list of notable disappearances attached to its name, from centuries-old sailing ships to modern warships and airplanes. But it wasn't until writers in the media got hold of these stories that the legend truly took off. Interestingly, no one really called it the Bermuda Triangle until the 1960s. The idea that all these incidents might be connected did not crystallize in the public's mind until a series of articles and books mid-century. The first spark came in September 1950 when an Associated Press reporter named Edward Van Winkle Jones wrote a short piece about mysterious disappearances of ships and planes in the Florida-Bermuda area. Jones's article, printed in the Miami Herald and other papers, didn't coin a special name, but it planted the seed by suggesting these losses were unusual. 2 years later, in 1952, Fate magazine, a paranormal-themed publication, ran an article titled "Sea Mystery at Our Back Door" by George X. Sand. This was the first to explicitly outline a triangular region and hint that something otherworldly might be at work. Sand's article enumerated several cases, the Sandra Freighter, Flight 19, the Star Tiger and Star Ariel, and others, and implied they formed a pattern. Though it still didn't use the name Bermuda Triangle, the concept was emerging. The actual name came over a decade later. In February 1964, writer Vincent Gaddis published an article in the pulp magazine Argosy titled "The Deadly Bermuda Triangle," and with that, the moniker was born. Gaddis defined the triangle's boundaries, Miami, Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and asserted that a series of unexplained disappearances had happened within it. The next year, Gaddis expanded his work into a book, Invisible Horizons, which devoted a chapter to the Bermuda Triangle. Gaddis's writings opened the floodgates. Throughout the late 1960s and especially the early 1970s, a slew of books, articles, and TV programs latched onto the triangle mystery. Authors like John Wallace Spencer, Limbo of the Lost, 1969, and Richard Weiner, The Devil's Triangle, 1974, followed Gaddis's lead, each adding more cases and increasingly supernatural suggestions. But the most influential by far was Charles Berlitz, a linguist and paranormal enthusiast, who published The Bermuda Triangle in 1974. Berlitz's book became an international bestseller. It sold 20 million copies in 30 languages, and it was this book that cemented the Bermuda Triangle's fame worldwide. Berlitz dramatically claimed that the triangle was a genuine mystery beyond scientific explanation, popularizing incidents, some real, some dubious, to support the idea of an enigmatic hole in the world where ships and planes disappeared. By the mid-1970s, the Bermuda Triangle had fully entered pop culture. The timing was perfect. The post-World War II era through the 70s was rife with fascination for the paranormal and UFOs, from the Bigfoot and aliens craze to the era's many In Search Of style TV specials. The Bermuda Triangle was a made-to-order mystery that seemed to blend science fiction with scary reality. Newspapers and television ran sensational pieces. In 1973, a feature film called Beyond the Bermuda Triangle aired, and in 1975, a popular TV movie, Satan's Triangle, dramatized a spooky tale of a cursed ship in the Bahamas. Documentary programs such as a 1976 episode of Nova titled The Case of the Bermuda Triangle investigated and largely debunked the claims. No account of the Bermuda Triangle is complete without delving into the extraordinary explanations that have been proposed. Over the years, The triangle's mystique has attracted a host of paranormal and speculative theories, often far outside the realm of conventional science. Here are some of the most famous or infamous ideas that have been offered to explain the triangle's alleged phenomena. Alien abduction and UFOs. One popular theory posits that extraterrestrials are responsible for the disappearances. In this narrative, the Bermuda Triangle is a hotspot for UFO activity, and ships and planes are abducted by aliens for unknown purposes. This idea was even woven into pop culture. In Spielberg's Close Encounters, Flight 19 is whisked away by aliens only to be returned decades later. While there is no evidence for this, the UFO theory remains a favorite in the more imaginative corners of triangle lore. Time warps and dimensional vortices. Another suggestion is that the triangle contains a rift in space-time, essentially a door to another dimension or a time warp. Those who favor this hypothesis speak of electronic fog or strange clouds that cause compasses to spin and aircraft to disorient, possibly transporting them to a different time or place. A pilot named Bruce Jernan famously claimed he flew through a tunnel-shaped cloud in the triangle in 1970 and emerged hundreds of miles away, believing he experienced a time jump. Stories like these, though unverified, contribute to the notion of the triangle as a place where the normal rules of physics might not apply. The lost city of Atlantis. Perhaps the most whimsical theory involves the fabled lost continent of Atlantis. Some writers, notably Charles Berlitz, speculated that the triangle's powers could be due to remnants of Atlantis lying on the seafloor. A particularly creative version even claims that Atlantis had advanced crystal energy technology, and that crystal power sources still active on the ocean bottom occasionally wreak havoc with vessels above. These hypothetical Atlantean crystals are said to cause mechanical failures or disintegrations of ships and planes. No evidence for Atlantis has been found in the area, or anywhere, but the idea nicely merges two alluring mysteries, the Triangle and Atlantis, into one narrative. Reverse gravity, black holes. In the 1970s, some suggested that localized variations in gravity or even black hole-like phenomena on Earth could exist in the triangle, swallowing matter. These fringe ideas posited invisible vortices that could suck up objects, somewhat akin to a sea-based equivalent of the sky vortex idea. Again, no scientific basis exists for such anomalies on Earth's surface, but the concept adds to the triangle's supernatural reputation. Sea monsters and rogue waves. Going back to older times before aliens were in vogue, sailors sometimes blamed giant sea creatures for vanishings. After the Cyclops went missing in 1918, newspapers mused about the possibility of a giant squid dragging ships under. Sea monster theories have largely fallen out of favor, but interestingly, the modern rogue wave explanation, discussed later, provides a kernel of truth. Colossal waves, not creatures, could indeed swat a ship into oblivion unexpectedly. In essence, the paranormal theories reflect humanity's attempt to explain the unexplainable with the extraordinary. They thrive in the absence of concrete answers. When a ship or plane disappears and leaves no trace, it's almost a natural psychological response to imagine something uncanny at work. The Bermuda Triangle, being such a high-profile mystery, became a magnet for these theories. From alien kidnappers to time vortexes, the triangle has served as a canvas for virtually every kind of speculation. It's important to note that none of these paranormal explanations have any evidence behind them. They remain in the realm of science fiction and conspiracy. Yet they are an integral part of the triangle's story and its allure to the public. The truth, as we shall see, is likely far more mundane, but also much more provable. While the sensational accounts grabbed headlines, scientists and investigators have long pointed out that the Bermuda Triangle is not beyond understanding. Numerous natural explanations, individually or in combination, can demystify the supposed mysteries. Here are the leading scientific and environmental factors often cited. Compass variations. One oft-mentioned fact is that the Bermuda Triangle is one of the few places on Earth where compasses might point towards true north rather than magnetic north. Normally, navigators must correct for the difference, declination, between magnetic north, what a compass shows, and true geographic north. In the triangle area, this difference can vanish, potentially causing an inexperienced pilot or captain to drift off course if they don't realize their compass isn't adjusted. In earlier eras, this could have contributed to navigation errors. However, experts note this is a well-known phenomenon and modern navigation accounts for it, so it's not a mystery per se, just a quirk of geomagnetism. It's also worth noting that two places on Earth compasses point true north are the Bermuda area and an area off Japan, the so-called Devil's Sea, which interestingly has its own parallel legends. Violent weather and storms. The triangle sits in a hurricane alley. Atlantic tropical storms and hurricanes frequently sweep through this region, especially between June and November. In the days before modern weather forecasting, a ship could easily sail from calm seas straight into a raging hurricane with little warning, a likely fate for many vessels lost in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Sudden squalls or microstorms can also occur. The area is known for fast-changing weather, partly due to the warm Gulf Stream current, see below. Powerful downdrafts or microbursts from thunderstorms, sometimes called air bombs, can hit the ocean with explosive force, potentially downing aircraft or capsizing ships. In recent years, some scientists, using satellite imagery, noticed hexagonal cloud formations over parts of the triangle that could indicate these airbursts, with winds of 100+ miles per hour creating massive waves. This was a hypothesis aired on a Science Channel program. So, rather than any supernatural cause, plain old Mother Nature, in the form of hurricanes, rogue squalls, waterspouts, or lightning, can easily account for many disappearances. A good example, the Marine Sulphur Queen likely sank in rough seas, and the Sylvia El Asa was lost in a 1976 gale. The Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is a strong ocean current that flows out of the Gulf of Mexico, runs through the Straits of Florida, and up the Atlantic coast. In the Triangle area, this current can be extremely swift, moving at 2 to 4 knots, and it meanders unpredictably. The Gulf Stream can quickly disperse debris. A plane ditching or a ship sinking into the Gulf Stream might leave little wreckage at the location of loss, as the current could scatter parts over vast distances. This could make search efforts futile. Many vanished without a trace events are likely due to wreckage being swept away by currents before it could be found. Additionally, the Gulf Stream's warm waters can fuel sudden weather changes, adding to the previous point about unpredictable storms. Shallow waters and reefs. The triangle encompasses a large part of the Bahamas and Caribbean islands, dotted with numerous shoals, sandbanks, and coral reefs. Much of this area has deceptively shallow waters extending far from shore. For ships, straying slightly off course could mean running aground or capsizing, especially sail ships in old days. The notorious Great Isaac Bank and others near the Bahamas wrecked many ships historically. A ship that founders on a reef can sink quickly, sometimes leaving no survivors to tell the tale. Additionally, shallow areas can create misleading sea conditions, e.g., the whitewater or foamy shoals. Flight 19 mentioned might have been the White Banks near the Bahamas, which could confuse pilots unfamiliar with the view from above. The combination of poorly charted shoals in earlier eras and human error might explain some of the mysterious vanishings that were in fact simply maritime accidents. Human error and deliberate acts. We must not overlook the simplest explanation: mistakes, malfunctions, or even foul play. Pilots get lost, as Flight 19 tragically illustrates. Captains can misnavigate or ignore storm warnings. Mechanical failures can bring planes down or disable ships. For instance, one disappearance Berlitz wrote about was a yacht that went missing, but Larry Kusha later found it had simply run out of gas and drifted, and its crew was rescued. Hardly an unsolved mystery. In other cases, a vanished boat may have actually been hijacked or scuttled deliberately. The 1972 explosion of the tanker V.A. Fogg was cited by Triangle authors as mysterious, but the Coast Guard found the wreck and recovered bodies. The authors just hadn't done basic research. Some disappearances were reported as mysterious, but the boats later turned up safe. Those don't make sensational books. In short, many losses in the Triangle can be attributed to ordinary maritime and aviation perils, compounded at times by human fallibility. Methane hydrates, oceanic flatulence, One fascinating scientific theory involves large deposits of methane gas hydrates under the seafloor. Methane hydrates can occasionally erupt, releasing huge methane bubbles that rise through the water. If a truly massive bubble came up under a ship, tests have shown it could reduce the water's density and cause the ship to lose buoyancy and sink abruptly. Likewise, methane gas released into the air could theoretically stall an aircraft engine or even cause an explosion. The U.S. Geological Survey has noted this phenomenon in some parts of the world's oceans. However, there's no conclusive evidence that a methane blowout has occurred at the right time, place to sink a triangle ship. It remains a possible natural factor, but is not considered a primary explanation by most researchers, and it wouldn't account for planes disappearing. Rogue waves. In recent years, scientists have seriously studied the occurrence of rogue waves, enormous, unexpected waves that can reach 80 to 100 feet high. In 2018, oceanographers from the University of Southampton, like Dr. Simon Boxall, suggested that the triangle's intersection of storm systems could produce occasional rogue waves capable of snapping a ship in half. They even created simulations showing how three massive storms converging could generate a transient giant wave. A ship the size of the Cyclops, they demonstrated, might be vulnerable to such a freak wave and go down fast, explaining why no SOS was sent. While rogue waves are a relatively new field of study, there is growing evidence they occur more often than previously thought, and the Bermuda Triangle's waters, with regular storms in the Gulf Stream, are plausible breeding grounds. This explanation is entirely natural. It basically says unlucky timing with a once-in-several-decades monster wave could sink ships like the Cyclops abruptly. In summary, science paints a far less mysterious picture of the Bermuda Triangle. All the factors above, alone or in combination, likely explain the disappearances. A plane flying into an unexpected squall or experiencing instrument failure over open ocean can be lost. A ship caught in a sudden hurricane or massive rogue wave can go down without time for distress calls. Strong currents and deep trenches, the Puerto Rico Trench is among the deepest in the Atlantic, can quickly hide evidence. From a statistical view, the triangle doesn't even have an especially high number of incidents for such a heavily traveled area. It's just that the mystery angle made people notice the ones that did occur. As NOAA stated, there is no evidence that mysterious disappearances occur with any greater frequency in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other large, well-traveled area of the ocean. By the late 1970s, the Bermuda Triangle had become so famous that it inevitably invited scrutiny. Skeptical investigators started to fact-check the dramatic claims made by triangle authors. The most notable was Larry Kusha, a research librarian who took a methodical look at the legend. In 1975, Kusha published The Bermuda Triangle Mystery, Solved, a book that did much to debunk the myth. His approach was straightforward. He went back to the original incident reports, weather logs, and news archives for each alleged triangle disappearance. What he found was eye-opening. Kusha discovered that many of the famous cases had been misrepresented or exaggerated. For example, Berlitz's book described a ship lost 3 days out of an Atlantic port, leaving no trace. Kusha found the ship actually sank 3 days out of a Pacific port and was never in the triangle. Berlitz listed the 1937 disappearance of a plane off Daytona Beach as mysterious. Kusha found newspaper records that hundreds witnessed it crash and sink, not a mystery at all. Some ships Berlitz called missing were later found or had run aground in an entirely non-mysterious way. Kusha noted that triangle writers often omitted key details, like storms, to make a story spookier, or they didn't verify if wreckage was later found. In case after case, he showed that the mysteries weren't so inexplicable when you had all the facts. Critically, Kusha concluded that the number of incidents in that region was not disproportionate. Given the huge amount of shipping and flight traffic through the area, the losses were statistically normal. He wrote, "The legend of the Bermuda Triangle is a manufactured mystery, perpetuated by writers who either purposely or unknowingly made use of misconceptions, faulty reasoning, and sensationalism." Kusha's work took much of the wind out of the sails of the Bermuda Triangle as a legitimate paranormal phenomenon. Other authorities weighed in to support the mundane view. The U.S. Coast Guard, which maintains searches and incident reports, has long maintained an official skepticism toward the triangle. The Coast Guard's position is that in every investigation of losses in that area, no extraordinary causes have been found. In their words, nothing has ever been discovered that indicates any casualties were the result of anything other than physical causes. They even published a detailed rebuttal in the 1970s, noting that authors were often sloppy or false in their accounts, and emphasizing that the ocean can be a dangerous place, period. Insurance companies also had their say. Lloyd's of London, the famous insurer, was asked in the 1970s about the triangle. If this area were truly more perilous, one would expect insurance rates for planes and ships to be higher. Lloyd's reported that no, they did not charge higher premiums for Bermuda Triangle voyages, because they saw no greater risk there. Their records showed no unusual concentration of losses. The underwriting numbers, in other words, didn't support the legend. This practical business perspective echoed what NOAA and others said. The triangle seemed deadly only because stories made it so, not because nature did. Scientists also pointed out that the U.S. Board of Geographic Names does not even recognize the Bermuda Triangle on any official maps. It's not an official region, just a popular concept. The boundaries are arbitrary. Different writers draw the triangle differently. Some stretch it far into the Atlantic or Gulf, which means what incidents count can be cherry-picked. If a loss happened outside one author's triangle, another author just made a bigger triangle. This lack of rigor further suggests the mystery is not a consistent phenomenon, but rather a flexible story. As media frenzy calmed down by the 1980s, a more rational consensus emerged. The Bermuda Triangle, while a fun idea, does not actually defy the laws of science or statistics. In the words of the NOAA Ocean Service, the combined forces of nature and human fallibility outdo even the most far-fetched science fiction as explanations for the supposed mysteries. In other words, we don't need aliens or time warps when unfortunate weather and human error more than suffice. In recent decades, the Bermuda Triangle hasn't generated new mysteries on the scale of a Flight 19 or a Cyclops. This is perhaps due in part to better technology. Today's ships and planes have advanced tracking, communication, and weather forecasting that make disappearances, especially without a trace, far less common. However, the triangle continues to intrigue and to be studied, both by serious researchers and by those seeking thrills. Occasionally, new theories make headlines claiming the solution to the Bermuda Triangle. For instance, in the mid-2000s, some meteorologists speculated that unusual hexagonal cloud patterns observed over the triangle could create air-bomb microburst winds that might have caused past incidents. This got attention in news specials, though other scientists were skeptical of how specific that was to Bermuda. In 2018, as mentioned, a British research team led by Dr. Simon Boxall simulated rogue waves in a lab tank and proposed this as the answer for ship sinkings. This is a plausible factor, though not unique to the triangle. Rogue waves occur globally. Interest in finding wrecks has also continued. In early 2020, a fascinating discovery was made. The wreck of the SS Cotopaxi, a tramp steamer that disappeared in 1925 en route from Charleston to Havana, was found on the ocean bottom off St. Augustine, Florida. The Cotopaxi had been mythologized as a triangle victim. It even featured in Close Encounters as a ghost ship reappearing. Its wreck discovery by marine archaeologists finally provided a mundane ending to that tale. The ship likely sank in a storm, and its remains lay where they fell, not teleported to another dimension. Each such find, another was the probable discovery of one of the Flight 19 Avengers in the Everglades in the 1990s, far from where it was thought to be, helps demystify the legend. It shows that vanished often just meant sunk somewhere we haven't looked yet. A map of the Bermuda Triangle, roughly defined by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Despite its popular notoriety, the U.S. Board of Geographic Names does not officially recognize this region, and the U.S. Coast Guard and NOAA note that it sees no more disappearances than any comparably busy ocean area. The Bermuda Triangle remains a tourist draw and a media topic, if not a scientific one. In Bermuda, you can find triangle-themed attractions and tours. Countless YouTube videos and TV documentaries still recount the classic mysteries or claim new insights, from History Channel specials to independent investigators retracing Flight 19's path. A recent series titled Curse of the Bermuda Triangle, Discovery Channel, 2020, followed enthusiasts looking for answers, illustrating that the public's appetite for this legend endures. Meanwhile, organizations like NOAA and the U.S. Navy have on their websites clear Q&A sections essentially debunking the triangle for curious readers, emphasizing that natural explanations suffice and that the ocean can always surprise those who venture out. In popular culture, the triangle has taken on a life beyond actual geography. It's referenced as a metaphor, e.g., a Bermuda Triangle of career choices, and it undoubtedly will continue to inspire fiction. It sits alongside other classic mysteries like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, widely regarded with skepticism by experts, yet kept alive in the popular imagination by a mix of genuine curiosity, entertainment, and a bit of hope that the world still has unsolved secrets. The story of the Bermuda Triangle is ultimately a testament to the power of storytelling and human imagination. In reality, the Bermuda Triangle is an ocean region like any other. It presents dangers like volatile weather, treacherous reefs, and the occasional human mistake, but nothing supernatural has ever been proven to lurk there. Ships and planes have certainly been lost in those waters, but no more so, proportionally, than elsewhere. What makes the Bermuda Triangle unique is not its inherent physical properties, but the narrative that has been built around it. From Columbus's fiery omen in 1492 to the spine-chilling last message of Flight 19 in 1945, the Triangle's legend grew because we are captivated by the unexplained. That intrigue was amplified by imaginative writers and the media, who turned a series of unrelated tragedies into a cohesive mystery mythos. In that myth, deep forces or unknown energies, maybe aliens or Atlantis or time warps, challenge our modern confidence in understanding the world. It's a great story. People like the idea that there are still mysterious corners of Earth where our science and certainty break down. Yet, as we've explored, when one pulls back the curtain, one finds explanations that are often simple, if sometimes prosaic or sad. Many sailors and pilots likely met nothing more exotic than a powerful storm or an unlucky malfunction. The true wonder might be in the sea itself. The sheer depth and breadth of the ocean can hide many events from human knowledge, making it feel as if something vanished when it's really just waiting unseen on the seabed. In the end, the Bermuda Triangle lives on as a modern legend, neither fully believed by the rational mind nor fully dismissed in our collective imagination. It occupies that gray space where science and myth intersect. The triangle teaches us both humility, that nature can still outwit us, and creativity in the stories we conjure to explain the unknown. Whether one is a skeptic or a believer, the Bermuda Triangle at least encourages us to delve into history, to examine evidence, and to marvel at the majesty and mystery of the sea. And so, as long as people love a good mystery, the Bermuda Triangle will likely remain open for business, continuing to inspire new generations to ask, what really happened to those ships and planes? Perhaps the real secret of the Bermuda Triangle is that we were the ones who created the mystery all along, and that says as much about us and our love for the unknown as it does about that patch of ocean itself. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more fascinating stories, and ring the bell so you never miss a new episode from Cipher History. Stay curious.